Hello Seawolves and welcome back to the show. Sorry for my short absence, but I had COVID for a full-on 2 weeks. Wasn't too bad, but I really coughed a lot, so it really wasn't possible for me to do a show. And also there really wasn't that much going on, so I kind of saved it up for this next show. But today we really have a lot to talk about. We're going to do a short update on the Jules Verne. We're going to talk about the Volvo 65 clinics update, which are finally coming in May. And we're going to talk a lot about the new America's Cup and all of the details that have been coming out over the last few months on that, because it looks like the America's Cup is going in a very interesting new direction with the entire race concept. So lots to talk about, but still that cough from COVID a little bit, as you can see. Let's start with the toast, shall we? So I hope you have something delicious in your cup. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Cheers. So first things first, the Jules Verne attempt getting around the world in less than 40 days by the Maxi Trimaran Sails of Change and what happened there. So on the 1st of February they had to kind of cancel their attempt for this season, because obviously the seasons are changing, and so the Antarctic winter, autumn winter is now kind of coming in, making the Southern Ocean more and more gnarly day by day, and so a record attempt really isn't safe anymore. So it's really unfortunate. They were on standby in the end for 3 full months, so starting in November, December, and then they actually kind of lengthened their standby by another month all the way to the end of January. But unfortunately, we can kind of look at the weather map and see what actually happened. So usually what they're kind of counting on is several, relatively stable weather system, which is the Azores High, which is kind of around here, which usually produces fairly stable weather. But this time that system was located a little bit more to the south than it usually is, and just a little bit more unstable than it usually is, which wasn't really giving the team the kind of running start that they really need to get ahead of the record far enough in that first period of the race, which we know, if you saw my other shows, is very important. Doldrums were kind of what they're usually doing, and the other problem was the Helena High, so kind of the area to the east of South America, where we also generally have a fairly stable high pressure system. But as you can see also now, and it's been kind of like that for the last month and a half, we see that we have several kind of low pressure areas here, high pressure areas kind of moving around, creating a very kind of chaotic weather system, which just really isn't conducive to the record attempt again, because really that first part, so getting to Cape Horn in under I think 12 days is real, Cape Town, sorry, is very important for the first part of the race to even be able to kind of get ahead of the current record, which is just so very, very tight. And so with the weather being that unpredictable and a little bit unusual this year, there just wasn't any one point where the team felt like they could make a serious attempt and get to the right point in the Southern Ocean fast enough to have a chance to actually beat IDEX Sport on the rest of the records. So that's it, I guess, for the Jules Verne attempt this year, and we'll have to wait probably till next November for the next attempts, which of course there will be the attempt by Sails of Change, and also Sudibu and possibly Gitana will make another attempt at that time. So hopefully it will be interesting to see 1, 2, maybe 3 attempts, perhaps even happening simultaneously, which could be very interesting. But we'll have to wait till November of this year to see how that happens. So that's it for the Jules Verne for now. That brings us to that other around the world race, the ocean race, and good news on that front. So like I mentioned, I think 2 episodes ago, we have a starting date now in 2023, so that's very nice. Originally it was going to happen this year, but of course they kind of, postponed it to the beginning of next year, I guess. But that does mean that we as Seawolves now have a good window to finally do our clinics on board of the Volvo 65 Janssen and Janssen / Childhood. So it's now confirmed that the boat is going to be back in May. Of course, if you looked last week, we published the options for you guys to join actually on the Volvo 65 during the Carib 600 or the Heineken regatta. For more info on that, check the website. But we now also know that after the Heineken regatta, basically the boat is going to go across the Atlantic and come back here to Holland, to Scheveningen again. That will be in May. So as we get closer to that, we're going to confirm actually the dates. But we're pretty much 100% sure that the boat will be back. And of course, with COVID now kind of everything dying down, pretty much, having some stable systems around there, we're pretty much 100% sure that we can actually do the clinics now this summer in May. So we just activated the website and the booking options again, because last time it was sold out so fast, and then originally we only had like 2-3 weeks of lead time. So people were booking tickets. We didn't really know what to expect as far as how many people wanted to join. So now that we have a little bit more time, actually 3 full months to kind of prepare this, we're really curious to see how many of you actually with this much time to prepare want to join. So we opened the reservations now. You can book your ticket, and so we know how many spots there are still kind of open for the event now. But we also made sure that once all the seats are filled, you can continue booking the event so that we can see, because we have basically as much capacity as we want for these events for now, because the schedule right now is still completely open. So the sooner we know how many of you want to join, the sooner we can lock down, basically as many afternoons, weekends as we need to make sure that we, or maybe, several days in a row to make a really cool long clinic weekend or even week. So if you want to join, we have the offshore and the inshore clinics. Both of them are going to have a little race in there also. So since we had so much time, we had a lot of time for me to kind of converse with the captain and think of some cool things to do. So they're going to be super cool workshops. The onshore, the in the marina part workshop is also going to be very cool. Of course, it's going to be the option for you guys to visit my gallery, and we're going to do some kind of dinner. So it's going to be a really cool event. Go to the Volvo 65 clinics info button, and there you can find all the info, and you can book your ticket now if you want. And if you already have your ticket booked, just keep an eye on your email. As soon as we have the dates confirmed, you'll get an option menu where you can pick your date. And of course, if you've already booked, you're going to be first in line to pick your date for your clinic. And as you book now, of course, the higher you're going to be, so the better your chances of booking the day that you want, as the dates are going to be announced, I guess. So very important, very excited that we're finally going to, damn it, make this happen after so much COVID troubles and everything. So I'm super happy that we're going to make it happen finally. So make sure to get on that as quickly as possible, and let's make that a really, really cool event. Which brings me to the America's Cup and also the SailGP, because I'm getting a lot of questions from you on whether we will at some point start to also cover the SailGP. Now I think that's very interesting to do. I think SailGP is great. I'm definitely following it myself also. It's very exciting. I think the technology, of course, coming from the previous America's Cup kind of racing technology is a really, really, the AC40 is basically really cool, sorry, the F50 really cool boat, but we didn't really want to fall into that kind of mid-season. So for this season I'm kind of leaving it alone, but for next season, so season 3 of the SailGP, we're definitely going to do a show on that. Of course, live will be very hard, so we'll probably do a review show kind of after every show, and it will not be just me. I'm kind of working on a team of 3 or 4 cool sail commentators, and I think we'll do kind of like a review show after each event to kind of talk through all the cool moments and kind of make it kind of like a SailGP review show. So look forward to that on Seawolves here next year, but not in this season. And that brings us to the current oncoming America's Cup season, because finally, several documents have come out on that. We know now what boat we're going to be racing in. We even know what boat we're going to be racing in the next AC. So I thought it would be kind of cool to look through those details.
The world of sailing is perhaps humanity's most impressive living repository of history and tradition. Sailing was the first real means by which humans traveled the entire globe and discovered new worlds. From the first small sailing river barges all the way to the huge, majestic sailing ocean liners. Mariners thousands of years ago, and mariners today, used the same knots to tie their sails. The materials are ever evolving, but we still use the same rigging techniques and the same engineering principles to travel the seas. To sail our boats, we employ the same forms of teamwork, discipline, and organization that have been used throughout history. If we need to, we make use of ancient, almost magical trickery to read the sun or the moon and stars to keep to our course. Sailors face the same dangers and see the same wonders when crossing oceans. One tradition that has always been held high among those who sail on the seas is the spirit of competition. To look your opponent in the eye, to taunt, to dare, and to set the rules, prepare your challenge, and then give it all you have, and let the gods decide who wins the day. The fates of countries have been changed by sailing duels. The right wind at the right time, unleashing pride and creativity in the heart of a nation, sparking it into a better, grander version of itself, inspiring ever greater dreams for the future. The story of America's Cup is the epitome of this beautiful tradition of competition. And it all began in 1851 with the organization of the Great Exhibition of the Works of Industry of all nations, sometimes referred to as the Crystal Palace exhibitions because of the temporary structure in which it was held. All of the world's most finest inventors, entrepreneurs, captains of industry and culture all came together under the hospitality of Queen Victoria. Famous people of the time attended, including Charles Darwin, Michael Faraday, Samuel Colt, Charles Dickens, George Eliot, and many others. Within the buzz and bustle of this historic event, the Earl of Winton, then Commodore of the Royal Yacht Squadron, invited John Cox Stevens, the then Commodore of the New York Yacht Club, to use the facilities of the squadron during their visit. Naturally, the American guests anticipated racing with the British, and so they brought their fastest, most modern ship, the schooner America. But of course, the different boats did not belong to the same class, and so, for the occasion, an open class was established, allowing the America to compete. The original poster read, "The Royal Yacht Squadron 100-pound Cup, open to yachts belonging to the clubs of all nations, to close at midnight, no time allowance for tonnage." With the Queen herself watching, 15 yachts started the race, and 10 hours and 34 minutes later, the yacht America finished in first place, almost half an hour ahead of the next competitor. It was a stunning win. The Americans had won a victory right inside of the cultural heart of British sailing. The prize was brought home to New York and displayed proudly, but of course, to the British, this could not be allowed to stand. The American winners renamed the cup the America's Cup, and upon donating the trophy to their yacht club, they stipulated in the deed of gift that this cup was donated upon the condition that it shall be preserved as a perpetual challenge cup for friendly competition between foreign countries. With the establishment of this rule, the British started the building of their boat, in the same style as the America, a schooner, and in 1870, James Lloyd Ashbury sailed his yacht Cambria to New York on behalf of the Royal Thames Yacht Club to challenge for the America's Cup. This was the beginning of the world's fiercest yachting duel, and for 132 years, the New York Yacht Club accepted challengers from all over the world, never losing the cup even a single time. In the world of yachting, it became the single most prestigious sailing race in the world. But to the general public, its existence was barely known.
However, that all changed in 1983. To the bewilderment of the world, Australia became the first to defeat the Americans after a 132-year unbroken winning streak. The cup finally changed hands for the first time. It lit a fire under the nation of Australia, elevating the sport of sailing to the national pastime, and it invigorated every other sailing nation in the world to see that it was possible to win the cup. It changed everything. It marked the start of the modern America's Cup, with the Americans rallying the nation, hell-bent to win back the national pride. Innovation soared, and they did win it back, but they also lost it again. And that brings us to today, 169 years after the original 100-pound cup was won by the America, to the longest-running international sailing duel in history. So this November, as you can see here on my screen besides me, the America's Cup organization dropped the protocol for the next, and actually kind of for the next two events. And I think that the Cup is moving in a very, very interesting direction. So I thought it would be cool to go through some of the details in this show, so you kind of know what to expect. Now, the first thing that's really interesting is to see that they kind of locked down in this document, is kind of the contract between the defender and the challenger of record, in this case Ineos UK and the Royal Yacht Squadron, I guess. And in order to make the sport accessible and a little bit more affordable, I mean, it is a development class, it just costs a godly amount of money, but in order to press down the costs a little bit and make the event a little bit more accessible, they've locked down the race format in the AC75s, not just for this race, but whoever wins the race. So, if entering there any challenger, let's say in this new America's Cup, commits by entering into the race to also, if they win the race, keep the AC75 for the not just for the 37 Cup, but also for the 38 America's Cup. So we know that for at least the next two iterations of the Cup, we're going to be racing in the AC75 for the main America's Cup event. But in addition to that, they also added kind of a new class based on the AC75, the AC40, which is a slightly smaller. So obviously the 75s are, a 75-foot boat, but they made kind of a scaled down and a little bit also simplified, automated version of the AC75, the AC40, which instead of an 8-man crew is going to have a 4-man crew, which is very interesting. And instead of having kind of the flying foiling mechanisms being more or less all hand controlled, it's going to have a partially automated foiling system, so kind of auto foiling, let's say, which will make it a little bit more easy to control for a smaller team. And so it's going to be very interesting because whilst of course in last edition the AC was still very much in development. So as we did early racing, the teams were still kind of, you know, making discoveries on the design and figuring out kind of within this rule how they would design the boats. But with the design of the AC75 kind of being much more, well, it's not finalized. I mean, it always will remain a development class. But with that idea kind of, you know, having lost most of its rough edges and people more working on kind of the final details of that, they've now created this separate AC40 class, and all of the preliminary racing, so also by the actual, main teams, is going to be in the smaller AC40. So that looks like a very interesting kind of build-up concept. And in addition to kind of the main, regattas up to the main America's Cup event, they've also introduced now a Youth America. Well, there kind of was already a Youth America's Cup, but in addition to, and that wasn't really in the real formal boats. It was a much smaller concept. But the Youth America's Cup will be raced in the AC47s, and they've also created a separate women's class, so an actual full-on Women's America's Cup, which will also be raced in the AC40. So we kind of get 3 events in those AC40 class, which are all leading up to the main event, which will be raced in the kind of the boat that we know a little bit now, the AC75s. I think this can be a very cool direction, making the event a lot more broader and creating hopefully much more racing, and hopefully adding to the number of teams that will enter the event. And when we look at the stats of the of this new AC4 Polar that they made for this design, and we see basically a potential downwind of 44 knots, racing at kind of like 155 downwind angle. But if we follow the Polar and we look at the full potential at like 100 or 110 degrees, it might even be a little bit harder. Now, they probably won't be racing at those angles, but still, you have a boat that potentially can hit maybe almost 50 knots. So a super exciting, super cool boat, both for the Youth Cup and the Women's Cup and the preliminary racing. A little bit smaller, a little bit more agile, a little bit cheaper also, which hopefully will ensure that a higher number of teams will enter. And I think we've seen kind of the really cool spectacle of seeing the F50s, of course, based on the original America's Cup design of the previous kind of the catamaran style foilers, and how cool this makes the SailGP. And of course, with the America's Cup being basically a one against one race, I think this will be the first time where we actually will see, well, not so much the AC75s, that will still be kind of a head-to-head racing machine, but we will see these AC40s racing against each other in bigger numbers, which I think, just like with the F50s now in SailGP, can be a very, very cool racing format, because I do think that we saw in the last America's Cup where we had, I think it was Ineos versus Terre Haute, where at some point because the Australians got off their foils, they had, I think, a 2-minute lead, and then Ineos got off their foils, and actually the Australians ended up winning the race by another 2-minute lead there. So actually killing off basically a 4-minute head start in the end. So pretty crazy numbers. And of course, if you put multiple boats like that in a race, I think you can get some pretty unexpected nail-biting results in the end. So that looks like a very, very cool racing direction, and I'm personally very much looking forward to see this AC40 class in action, kind of in the run-up towards the full America's Cup event in the AC75s. And that brings me to the Amsterdam side update of the program. So basically we've had an amazing winter, sailing more or less every weekend.
7.7 knots!
It's like cold, man.
In a lovely winter storm. It's pretty cold, pretty gusty.
We've had no frost and no ice, so we've been able to sail all winter, although it has been very, very cold, but a lot of fun. Last week we actually sailed in about 45 knots. full-on storm, which was really, really cool to see that, you know, basically the team that I'm training every week, every Saturday we're sailing, and many of the people that joined in the beginning had no sailing experience at all, and it's very cool to see that, you know, they're getting more and more competent and now able to really, you know, sail along with me in basically a full-on a winter storm and be very confident and competent on board.
Another gust. 7.5. Oh, there we go. 7.5. The boys look nervous but happy.
So we have about 5 like fixed members on the team right now. As we go towards the summer, we're going to probably have on board 4 more places for people to join in the summer. So that's sailing every Saturday. And as we're bringing on board 3 sponsors, so that's going to be happening over the next month or so, we're going to kind of step up the race program and professionalize a few things and actually start racing hopefully this summer season in several of the kind of cool Dutch regatta. So we're really looking forward to kind of knocking the Seawolves team more and more together and professionalizing that. So if you want to join, you know, please send an email to contact@seawolvestv.com. You can already join still here in the winter, or you know, if you like a little bit better weather, of course starting March, April, the weather is going to hopefully get a lot better and a lot warmer. So if you feel that your introduction in sailing would be a bit more better in that period, just let me know and reserve, because probably in the summer it's going to fill up quickly. And so yeah, that's it for the show today. Of course, please make sure to like the video, support the channel. Oh yeah, also very good to know, so over the next 3-4 months I've planned several visits to some of the Makka teams, as of course we're also now slowly getting into the long lead up to the Vendée Globe, which of course the race that we're all, you know, really waiting for. Hopefully by the end of this month I'll go to England to visit Pip Hare as she's putting her medallia back in the water, and we'll you know, we'll do some sort of like a mini documentary there. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that, and of course that's very much also thanks to your support, as we're going to visit a lot of teams. Are going to involve a lot of travel and technology and drones and all this type of things. So please keep supporting the channel. Get your mug, get your hoodies, get your Seawolf merch, I guess we're calling it. It really helps for me to be able to travel and invest in you know, visiting the teams and making some very, very cool content over the summer. So thank you very much for your support so far, and please keep supporting the channel. It's very, very important as we go into the summer. So yeah, that's it for this show. Hope to see you next week, and until then, have a great weekend. Ciao, ciao.